Hey guys, and welcome to Film Artsy, your number one source for all things films and movies. And with the Snyder cut of Justice League on its way, with a lot of development and planning going into it right now, and with its expected release in 2021, fans are really excited to see what director Zack Snyder would have been able to do had the movie hadn't ended up switching directors to Joss Whedon during production. Now, of course, we know Zack Snyder had a lot of personal stuff in his family going on during this time and had to step away from the role, but finally, after years of fans wanting to see what Zack Snyder's original vision is, we're finally going to see it. It's really interesting already to see the information we've gotten and the little first looks we've had and get to compare what Zack Snyder's version of Justice League will look like compared to the one we saw in theaters, the theatrical cut by Joss Whedon.
What about Diana?
Well, you have her number.
I'm only interested in her skill set.
I'm sure you are.
Hurry it up, will you?
And to make things even more interesting, we've seen Zack Snyder become a little more vocal, kind of throwing some major criticisms to Joss Whedon's version of the movie. Let's go ahead and jump into all of the stuff that we know so far that will be different in this movie, along with some of the talks that Zack Snyder has said so far. Before we fully dive in, huge shout out to our DC Thursday winner. If you guys didn't know, every single Thursday we ask a challenging DC related trivia question over on our community tab. So if you guys want to participate, have a chance to have your comment featured right here on our channel, make sure you're subscribed and head over to our community tab on Thursdays, answer the question for a chance to have your comment featured right here on the channel. So in a really interesting and recent interaction on Twitter, one viewer or fan of the DCEU reached out to Zack Snyder on Twitter and directly asked if Superman will say that line, "Do you bleed?" to Batman. And right away, Zack Snyder said, no, that literally makes no sense. What's really interesting about this, though, is this is kind of a direct criticism over to Joss Whedon's version of the film, which is kind of interesting that he's willing to be this vocal on this. And just a little while back in August, we actually saw that some people were questioning whether or not Ray Fisher's character Cyborg would say the line "Booyah" when he took his helmet off, and while some people did like the reference that was, other people were kind of critics towards that idea, including Ray Fisher himself, who's not only accused Joss Whedon for being unprofessional with his conduct on set, but also didn't like the fact that his character was kind of being reduced to a catchphrase dropping stereotype. So now that after years and years of fans wanting and petitioning for DC to re-release the film with Zack Snyder on board, and we're finally getting it, we already have gotten somewhat of a first look at some of the really cool things that are going to be different this time around when this movie releases. First and foremost, we know that the entire music direction and the score for the movie will actually have a completely different person behind the music. This version, the Snyder Cut version, will actually feature a score by Tom Holkenborg, also known as Junkie XL, who will replace the original composer of the movie, Danny Elfman, and this means that there'll be some major differences, possibly and probably, in the movie. The musical scores in things like movies are so integral to the way emotion is conveyed, to the way the movie is just put together, and it actually makes a lot of sense for the decision to replace the music and really make this movie feel like a drastically different film. There's also going to be some other small changes along the way. While we fully expect there to be some major color correction differences in the way that the film looks and just the coloration that goes into it, we also know that this version of the film will actually be in a 1:66:1 aspect ratio, which is commonly known as European widescreen, just something a little bit different. And then from the trailer, one of the most exciting things that was kind of revealed is that Darkseid, one of the biggest bad guys in the DC comic book universe, will be making a couple of appearances in this film. We don't fully know everything, but it seems like this character might be kind of lurking in the background scenes, and we get to see a little bit more of the background to Steppenwolf's assault on Earth, which is going to be really interesting to see. Also, if you remember to Batman v Superman, there was this little nightmare nightmare future storyline that Bruce experienced, and this will actually make a return in some way or another as this kind of continuation to that story arc and character progression. And real quick, we wanted to give a huge shout out to our Instagram page. If you guys didn't know, we just passed over 8,000 followers over on Instagram, so we'd really appreciate if you guys headed over to our Instagram, scrolled through some of our posts, maybe hit the like button and followed us over there. We do a lot of really interesting content if you love comic books, the MCU, DCEU, whatever it is. If you just like movies, it's a really cool page. We've been working really hard on it, and it would mean the world to us if you went over and checked it out as well. Then also we found out that Steppenwolf will have a brand new design for this film, and while he mostly looks similar, there are some major differences along the way. He's differently colored and actually has more heavy armor, which is a really big deal, and just trying to portray the differences and the stakes in something like a villain within a film like this. We also might actually see a little bit more of Lex Luthor in this film. Now, originally this character wasn't supposed to have a major role in the movie at all. Just a small cameo was what we saw in the theatrical release, though it was confirmed that there were a few scenes of Jesse Eisenberg playing Lex Luthor that never made it into the film, and we also found out relatively recently from Zack Snyder that Batman was supposed to learn about the parademons from Lex Luthor's journal, which would be interesting, and then we might see this tie-in to Lex Luthor maybe having a scene or two extra in this film. Then we fully expect some major things to be altered, changed, and included along the way. Not only is this movie going to be much longer, as it's going to release as a 4-part series on HBO, but they're going to be taking stuff out and replacing things with other stuff. For instance, the whole family that was there in the final battle that was used for kind of comic relief and maybe to add some stakes won't be included in this film, and we'll see a finale and a final arc more closely resembling what Zack Snyder's vision was. This next one's kind of funny, but if you remember back to when the directors switched, a lot of Superman's scenes ended up having to be reshot, and since Henry Cavill was filming Mission Impossible Fallout, he had a mustache in that movie, and he couldn't shave his mustache off. So instead, they decided to CGI it, and it looked really, really weird in the theatrical release of the film. So this, not only will we be seeing some of the original scenes that were shot before they were scrapped and reshot, but we might actually get to see some new scenes of Henry Cavill as well, along with Superman's black suit, which is something that a lot of people have really wanted to get to see on the big screen for a really long time. And then when it comes to the Flash, this character in the theatrical release kind of was this side character that maybe had some comic relief, though the original intentions was for this character to have an emotional story arc that grew, and that this character to actually go through some interesting stuff. So we will see a different version of this with the character Barry Allen. Apparently there's supposed to be an inclusion of Iris West in the movie, and we've even seen the deleted scene, which you guys can see on the screen right now, that was cut out. Perhaps the scene will be either put back in or a different version will be included, but it will be interesting to see what goes on. And while Snyder's teased that this character will go through something really interesting with his power, he didn't want to spoil anything, but we will see something that involves time and space being involved with Barry Allen. And then there's two other main characters that had a lot of stuff that were supposed to be included and fleshed out in the theatrical film, specifically Cyborg and Aquaman. There were a lot of introductions and things so that would have introduced characters to Aquaman's world even more, and some characters that would appear in that movie would have had a few scenes in this film. And same with Cyborg, who was supposed to have a ton of different storylines. His whole origin story honestly was mostly cut out of the theatrical version, and a lot of people were disappointed in that because that character, like we mentioned earlier, kind of just got added on as this two-dimensional character when they filmed all these really important scenes that were going to add a lot of depth to this character, and fans are really disappointed that we didn't actually get to see that development fleshed out, and we finally will get to see what happens. We know that in the Justice League theatrical release, Silas Stone does not die, but in Snyder's version, it was intended that this character would die, giving Victor extra motivation going into battle. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see that, so we're really excited to see how this actually plays out because it's a really important plot device. And then finally, and most importantly, and we touched on it a little bit already, the final battle is supposed to be completely different. It was actually supposed to be a lot more involved and maybe even a little more gruesome, and we didn't end up getting to see that. The whole final battle ended up getting completely reworked from the ground up, and we really want to see what that original vision was because apparently it was completely different from what we ended up seeing. But what do you guys think of this movie coming out? Are you excited to see it when it comes to HBO Max? Let us know in the comments down below. We'll see you all next time with a brand new video.
I'm about to.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Hi.
See you guys.
Know anybody?